Ghost Deck, The Nightmare Voyage. Chapter 17, The First Drowning. Part 2 begins. It began with silence. Not the calm kind, the kind that waits before the scream. The year was 1918, and the ship wasn't yet called the Mazi. Back then, she was the VSS Legere, a warship built not for comfort, but conquest. Steel-bellied, cannons still hot from the last battle, a floating grave waiting for its purpose. At her helm stood Captain Azia Lega Mazinga, man too smart to believe in ghosts and too proud to believe in mercy. His black coat snapped in the wind like a warning flag. He wore no rank on his chest. Everyone already knew who he was. Full steam ahead, he barked. We breached the reef by dawn. Below deck, the crew muttered. No one wanted to say it aloud, but they all felt it. The ship had been cursed ever since they pulled those 3 artifacts from the wreck near Dakar. 3 crates, no markings, sealed in gold, and in every port since, someone had gone missing. Or worse, they'd changed. In the engine room, a young sailor named Elias scrubbed his hands clean, muttering prayers under his breath. Beside him was Faye, the ship's only nurse, holding a letter from home that never stopped bleeding. And just above them, Darian, the ship's translator, whispered to the locked cargo. All 3 of them would be dead within the hour, and all 3 would become the good ghosts. The storm hit like a cannon to the spine. The VSS Legere was dragged into a swell that seemed to rise from nowhere. Lightning struck the crow's nest. Men screamed. The water turned black as ink can, then the crates opened. Nobody saw who did it, not even Leg Amazing. But when he turned to look below, the hold was glowing. And inside the light, figures moved. Elias was the first to act. He ran into the hold, hands trembling, heart louder than the storm outside. Faye and Darian followed. They found rituals burned into the wood, symbols on the inside of the crates, not the outside. The cargo hadn't been sealed in. It had been sealed away. We weren't supposed to take this, Darian whispered. We brought it to life, Faye said. The spirits inside the crates burst free, 7 of them, screaming, hungry. Wrong. Elias tried to hold the door shut. Faye chanted a prayer she barely knew. Darian recited the names written in old languages, trying to contain them. In doing so, they died. But the spirits didn't take them. They were too selfless, too pure. Instead, the magic warped them, kept their souls intact. They didn't rot, didn't vanish. Instead, they became anchors, the only good ghosts on the ship, the ones who remembered who they were. Above deck, Leg Amazing tried to steer into the reef to kill the ship before it could be taken. But the wheel burned his hands. He turned and saw his own reflection smiling back at him. The spirit had entered him. He didn't scream. He laughed. And as the ship slammed into the reef, split in 2, and vanished beneath the sea, he stood at the helm, burning, and they never found his body. The wreck disappeared off every map, until decades later, a millionaire dredged it up from the deep, restored the bones, painted it gold, and called it the Mazi. Now, the ghosts are trapped because of Darian's final spell, a sealing ritual gone wrong. It kept their souls from leaving, but it also bound them to the ship's mirror system, each spirit trapped in a different part of the vessel, tethered by memory. The 3 good ghosts, they're still trying to undo it. They protect the living. The other 7, they feed on the dream. And the worst part, Leg Amazing isn't just a ghost. He's what happens when the ship itself decides to wear a face. Chapter 18, Ghost Signals. It had been 3 days since the nightmare dinner. 3 days since Keezy plunged the blade into the captain's chair and ended Leg Amazing's reign. Or so they thought. Keezy didn't sleep anymore. Not really. Not like the others. When her body closed its eyes, her mind drifted into the walls, into the circuits of the Mazi. She could hear things now. The rust of the hull had voices, the lights had memories, and the mirrors, they whispered. In the ballroom, Frankie set up a comms rig with parts he found scattered across the casino. Kilo lay nearby, half asleep, ears twitching at every creak in the ceiling. If this ship was ever military, Frankie said, there's gotta be an SOS signal baked into the core systems. A long-range one, something deep in the hull, maybe in Section Null. Santana leaned against the wall, still recovering, a dark purple bruise crawling across his ribs. How you gonna find it? I'm not, Frankie said, twisting a dial. She is. Keezy stood at the ballroom's far end, silent, one hand touching the mirrored column that ran up to the chandelier. She hadn't spoken in nearly an hour, just breathed slowly. Inhale, Hold, exhale, then, there's a signal, she said quietly, but it's buried under a layer of old pain. Meanwhile, Mulan and Melissa explored the former captain's quarters. The room was too clean. Not a speck of dust, not a wrinkle on the bed, like it had been freshly made every hour on the hour for over a century. It's like someone's still living in here, Melissa said, hand on her blade. Mulan stepped closer to the mirror on the wall of all, warped around the edges, framed in brass that didn't reflect light properly. Then she saw it. The handprint, burned into the inside. Below deck, Thingy and Icy rigged up their own little survival corner in the crew quarters, barricades made from blackjack tables, a stash of canned food, and a barely working lantern. You feel it? Thingy asked. What? The shift, like the ship's holding its breath. Icy didn't answer. He was too focused on the ticking coming from the vent behind them. Not mechanical, biological. That night, they gathered in the observatory. Keezy drew a map from Memorino paper, just charcoal and instinct. This line, she said, pointing to a shaft no one had noticed before, goes behind the captain's mirror. It drops down into section null. And what's down there? Dewinna asked. Keezy looked up. Her eyes glowed again, just faintly. The rest of the curse. Frankie passed out headset radios made from scavenged parts. They won't work if you fall asleep, he said, so try not to do that. Santana laughed once, then winced. I barely sleep anymore anyway. That's not the problem, Frankie added. Down there, the dream walks with you, even if your eyes stay open. Everyone went silent. Keezy stepped to the edge of the map. We descend tomorrow. She turned, voice cold and steady. And when we do, we wake the rest. Outside the ship, something moved beneath the waves. Not a fish, not a ghost. Something older, watching, waiting. Chapter 19, Descent into Null. They suited up at dawn, not in armor, not in hazmat suits, just whatever made them feel less human, less vulnerable. Frankie wore his brother's scarf. Keezy had salt braided into her hair. Santana tied one of Dewinna's earrings to a rosary and called it insurance. Everyone brought something, because no one came back from Section Null unchanged. The entrance was behind the mirror, exactly where Keezy said it would be. She stood in front of the oval glass, its surface rippling slightly even in still air. Everyone ready? Define ready, Thingy muttered, gripping his crowbar. Keezy reached out, and the mirror accepted her. Not shattered, not resisted, just opened. One by one, they followed her inside. It wasn't a hallway. It was a spine, a long tunnel made of bone and steel, dripping with condensation and echoing with the hum of trapped thoughts. Melissa stumbled once and nearly screamed when the wall exhaled. Frankie led with a lantern that flickered purple every few steps. Kilo stayed close, tail low. How far does it go? Mulan whispered. Until the ship stops dreaming, Keezy answered. At the bottom of the spine, they found the vault, circular, sealed by a gear lock covered in handprints. 10 of them, some burned in, some scratched, one glowing faintly blue. Keezy reached out instinctively for the blue one. As soon as she touched it, flash, the vault yawned open like a mouth. Inside, a chamber filled with water but suspended, floating in the center, a mirror sphere, rotating slowly. Inside it, visions flickered, past passengers, past crew, past lives, and tethered to the floor around it, the ghosts, all 10, in chains, their features distorted, melted, all except the 3 glowing. Faye, Elias, Darian. They turned to Keezy as she stepped forward. You've come far, Elias said. But not far enough, Darian added. The captain dreamed still, Faye whispered. Suddenly, the mirror sphere cracked, just once, and Leg Amazing's voice poured through the room like oil. You've opened the last door, little storm. Now, drown with me. The chamber began to flood fast. The tethered ghosts wailed. One by one, the evil ones began to break loose. Frankie grabbed Keezy. We have to go. Not yet, she yelled. She turned back to the 3 good ghosts. Tell me, how do I end this? They looked at each other, then spoke together. Destroy the mirror heart and become the anchor. Keezy's mouth went dry. What does that mean? It means you'll stay here, Faye whispered. Forever. But everyone else will go free. Water now waist high. Kilo barked, panicked. Santana helped Melissa up a pipe. Thingy smashed at the nearest tether. Frankie shouted over the chaos. Keezy, We're out of time. She looked at the mirror heart. It flickered and called her name. Chapter 20, Salt and Memory. Keezy stood waist deep in freezing black water, her body trembling not from the cold, but from the truth. The mirror heart hovered just ahead, spinning slowly above the chamber floor. Cracks glowed along its surface like veins pulsing with memory. Every death, every scream, every moment lost aboard the Mazi lived inside that sphere. Behind her, the others were scrambling. The vault was collapsing. The chained ghosts wailed, pulling at their restraints like starved animals. The three good ghosts, Faye, Elias, and Darien, had stopped glowing. They watched her now with heavy, human eyes. Frankie climbed the pipe again, holding Kilo under one arm, his voice raw. "Keezy, we gotta go, you hear me?" She turned her head. "I hear you." She looked back to the mirror heart, but I hear him louder. Leg Amazing's voice oozed out of every crevice now. "You're not built to bear the dream. You don't even know what's beneath the mirror." The water rippled. Keezy stepped forward. She remembered her childhood, playing in a garden beside her grandmother. The smell of iron and oranges. The lullaby her mother hummed that she could never find the words to. The mirror heart reacted. Flashes burst across the surface. A baby crying. A man kneeling in blood. The original wreck. The spell that bound the ghosts. Leg Amazing screamed as the reef split open. "It's not just memory," she whispered. "It's him. This whole time, this ship never trapped him. It was him." The Mazi wasn't cursed. It was possessed. Water now chest high. Thingy and Icy held a broken rail for balance. Dewinna screamed as one of the evil ghosts snapped a chain and slithered toward the surface. Santana aimed his flare gun but hesitated. "Keezy, whatever you're doing, do it now." She reached the mirror heart. It hummed against her, skin alive, ancient, and deeply afraid. "Tell me," she said softly, "if I become the anchor, can I control the dream?" Silence. Then Faye answered, "You can't control it, but you can steer it. And if I break it, then no one wakes up." Keezy looked at Frankie, at Kilo, at Mulan, at Santana, still holding Dewinna up with one good arm, at Melissa, sobbing quietly in the dark. She turned to Faye. "If I become the anchor, can I lead them out?" Faye smiled through tears. "Yes." Keezy pulled the salt braid from her hair. She dipped it in the water and wrapped it around the glowing blade hilt. The blade returned formed from memory and intention. She raised it high. Leg Amazing screamed. The mirror heart fractured. Keezy slammed the blade through it. The room exploded in light. Water froze in midair. All 10 ghosts were pulled toward the sphere. Elias, Faye, Darien, and the rest. The chains shattered. The heart shattered. And in the stillness that followed, Keezy stood alone, suspended, eyes glowing white, floating above the vault floor. The survivors outside the vault woke on the hallway floor. The water gone, the chamber sealed, Keezy missing. In the ballroom later that night, Frankie set a single candle at the center table. She did it. Mulan lit the wick. But where is she now? Kilo sat silently at the window, watching the ocean. It was calm, but deep in the heart of the Mazi, Keezy opened her eyes. Now part of the ship, now the dream's new compass. But still herself. "You're mine now," she whispered, "and I won't let you hurt them again." Chapter 21, The Calm Before the Curse. The sky over the Mazi was the clearest it had been since the voyage began. No blood moon, no sulfur clouds, just stars. Cold, ancient stars like the kind sailors used to trust. Mulan stood alone on the top deck, arms folded over the rail, watching the ocean breathe. Her hair was damp from a bath she barely remembered taking. Her reflection in the water had a slight glow behind the eyes. Just a flicker. She knew what it meant. Keezy was watching. Below deck, Frankie had repurposed one of the guest lounges into a temporary control room. Cables, old dials, half-dead lights. He'd carved a chalk sigil on the floor to keep the energy stable, but even he wasn't sure what that meant anymore. "Keezy," he said aloud, "if you can hear me, give me something." The lights blinked twice, then paused, then blinked once more. Frankie smiled. "Good. You're still you." Kilo barked once, not at Frankie, but at the wall that hadn't been there before. Frankie stood and approached it. It pulsed like muscle. He touched it and heard her voice. "Section 9, leaking. Burn the vine, and tell Dewinna go near the mirror in room 208. Frankie nodded slowly. "Still bossy." In the crew kitchen, Santana limped and shirtless, bandaged and bruised, to find Icy trying to light the stove with a crucifix. "What the hell are you doing?" "Testing," Icy grinned, "just in case God's still on the line." Santana smirked. "You keep trying to fry eggs with holy relics, I'ma start praying for poison." Elsewhere, Dewinna was staring into the mirror in room 208. Of course she was. It didn't show her reflection. It showed her wedding day, the one she walked away from. "You still dream about him?" Melissa asked gently from the doorway. "Every night. That mirror's cursed. Aren't we all?" Melissa stepped closer. "We need you. Keezy needs you." Dewinna's voice cracked. "Keezy's gone. She saved us, yeah. But she ain't coming back." Behind them, the mirror warped, shifted, showed a dark version of Dewinna standing alone at the altar, smiling. Later that night, the ship rocked softly. Not from waves, from something underneath. Keezy's voice echoed through the vents. "Prepare." Frankie sat up from his cot. "Prepare for what?" The ship's bell rang once, then twice, then 13 times in a row. Up on the observation deck, Mulan looked out into the stars and saw a second ship on the horizon. No lights, no flags, just black sails and a shape like a rusted ribcage. It wasn't there a moment ago. And in the back of her mind, she heard her grandmother's voice from a dream long ago. "When the sea remembers you, it comes to collect." Chapter 22. The ship that shouldn't be. It didn't move like a ship. The thing on the horizon glided without disturbing the waves. No wake, no sound, no lights. It was as if the sea parted for it willingly. Mulan squinted through the spyglass mounted on the observation deck. The image shifted and twisted, the vessel refusing to come into clear focus. But then, just for a second, she saw the name carved into its side. The Griever. Her stomach turned. In the ballroom, Frankie set down his radio the moment the name came through Keezy's whisper. "The Griever," he repeated aloud, pulling out a worn leather logbook from a drawer of salvaged wreckage. "That's not a ship, it's a mass grave." He flipped through pages, scribbled drawings, hex diagrams, stolen Navy notes. It went down in 1874. No survivors. Supposed to be hauling stolen relics from a sunken chapel off the coast of Chile. "How's it here now?" Icy asked from the corner, clutching his rosary like a cigarette. "It's not," Frankie muttered. "It's never really anywhere. It appears when the sea's about to claim something or someone." Keezy's voice slid across the walls like fog. "You have 12 hours. Santana frowned. 12 hours till what? The bell rang again. This time not from the Mazi. From the other ship, Dewinna was pacing room 208. Melissa watched nervously as the mirror in the room now pulsed like a heartbeat. "You ever think this ship is showing us who we were just so it can feed off who we aren't anymore?" "Don't say that," Melissa whispered. "Why not?" Dewinna turned, eyes rimmed red. "You saw what Keezy had to do. Ain't no happy ending, just slower hauntings." The mirror flared, and for a second, they both saw Keezy, but not the one they remembered. This one wore the captain's coat. Her eyes glowed, and she wasn't smiling. On the top deck, Kilo started howling. Frankie sprinted up the stairs and found the dog clawing at the railing. The Griever had gotten closer, close enough now to see shapes on the deck. People, except they weren't alive. They moved in jerky, looping motions. Some were upside down. Some crawled on walls. Some dragged themselves without legs. A man in a plague mask rang the ship's bell again. Mulan grabbed Frankie's arm. "What are they waiting for?" Keezy's voice returned, this time inside their heads. "They're not waiting. They're hunting." Later that evening, the sky broke open. A thin ribbon of lightning split the ocean in two, and for a heartbeat, every spirit on the Griever turned their heads toward the Mazi in perfect unison. Keezy whispered one final warning. "They want the anchor." Frankie froze. "She means herself." Chapter 23. The captain beneath the mask. The Griever floated no more than a mile from the Mazi now. It loomed like a shadow that shouldn't cast light, its sails moving without wind, its bell ringing without rhythm. Mulan stood at the rail, flashlight in one hand and a butcher knife in the other. "This ain't no ghost ship," she muttered. "It's a warning." Behind her, Frankie was stringing copper wires between the ship's rails, using an old ritual he'd found in Darian's notes. "It's more than that," he said. "Keezy just told me something else." "What?" Frankie tightened the last wire, eyes haunted. "She's been on that ship before. Keezy drifted somewhere deep in the Mozzie's hull. Her consciousness spread across rusted vents and shattered reflections. In her current state, she wasn't human. Not exactly, but she still remembered. The Griever wasn't just a cursed ship. It was a punishment. It came for those who interfered with the dead. It came for those who tried to rewrite what should have stayed buried. And worse, the Griever was once the VSS Lagar's sister ship. Leg Amazing wasn't just the captain of a haunted vessel. He was a part of a fleet, a naval experiment long erased from history. Down in the engine room, Santana and Icy were piecing together a makeshift harpoon launcher. If Ghost Bull get close, we throw this first, Santana grunted, sweat trickling down his temple. You think this'll stop him? No, Santana said, but I want to make a damn dent before I go. Icy raised a brow. You still think you ain't making it off this thing? Santana didn't answer. Midnight hit, and that's when the bridge dropped. Literally, a bone-white plank extended from the Griever to the Mozzie, like a limb. At the far end, the masked captain stood, plague mask, tall hat, long coat dripping with rot, and no feet, just a fog that crawled forward with him. Keezy's voice echoed across the walls. Do not look under the mask. Melissa backed away from the ballroom mirror, clutching Dewena's hand. Is that the one? No, Dewena whispered. That's something else. That's the one they used to fear. Keezy's voice again. His name was Farron, the first man to bind a ghost to a hull, the first man to trap a soul and wear it like armor. He made Leg Amazing. Frankie ran to the upper deck just in time to see Kilo bark and bolt toward the bridge. Kylo, he screamed. The dog stopped, right at the edge. The fog hissed like a living thing. Then the Griever's captain lifted one hand and pointed, straight at Frankie, then turned and pointed at the ballroom, then at Keezy's mirror. A choice. He was offering one. Trade the anchor, or the rest die. Keezy's voice broke through one last time louder than ever. No matter what happens next, don't give me up. Chapter 24. The Bridge and the Bloodline. Kevin Robertson hadn't said much in days, but that didn't mean he wasn't watching. He'd seen Keezy give herself to the ship. He'd watched Frankie take charge. He'd even let Santana play hero for a minute. But now, the Griever was docked to the Mozzie like a leech, and the man in the plague mask was pointing at his wife's soul like it was property. That was the moment K-Rob stopped being quiet. On the bridge, Frankie stood frozen. Kilo barked again, teeth bared at the fog creeping in. The masked figure didn't move. Didn't need to. The pressure in the air was doing the work. Everyone felt it. The ship tilting not from the ocean, but from choice. Then, back off my ship, the voice came from behind Frankie. K-Rob. He walked up the steps like he owned them. Black hoodie soaked in sweat. Old scars across his knuckles. Eyes locked on the Griever. What are you doing? Frankie asked. Something you should have done hours ago. K-Rob stepped in front of the fog. Didn't blink. I don't care what crew you sailed with. I don't care how many ghosts ride your ribs. That's my wife in that mirror. You want her? Come earn her. Keezy felt it in the walls. Every bolt, every rail. Rob's rage turned into heat. Not blind anger, but something sharper. He wasn't just standing up for her. He was reaching her. In the mirror heart below deck, her reflection blinked. And for the first time in hours, she moved. Back on the deck, the masked captain took a single step forward onto the bridge. The plank didn't groan under his weight, but something else did. The Mozzie, she growled. K-Rob grinned. Yeah, she still remembers me. He turned to Frankie. Tell Icy to bring the flare canisters. Tell Santana to charge the main rail. Tell Mulan to light up every damn mirror on this deck. Frankie hesitated. Why? K-Rob cracked his neck. 'Cause we're not giving her up. Below deck, Dewena's mirror shattered. Keezy stepped out, not floating, walking, and behind her, the three good ghosts, Faye, Elias, Darian, not shimmering this time, ready. The fog recoiled from the ballroom first. The candles flared on their own. Mirrors across the ship pulsed with blue light. K-Rob stood tall on the upper deck, flare in one hand, iron spike in the other. You want war? He turned to the bridge. Then you came to the wrong ship. The Griever groaned. The plague mask captain paused, then lifted one arm and pointed again. But this time, he pointed to K-Rob, not as a threat, as a match. A shadow stepped onto the bridge behind the captain. Taller, broader, with glowing red eyes. A second captain? Number, a reflection, an answer, the Mazi's new protector, and its old one. Keezy's voice echoed, he's not just a man. He's the one the ship chose before it chose me. Chapter 25, Blood in the Hull. K-Rob never talked about the nightmares. Not the ones from childhood. Not the ones he had before he met Keezy. And definitely not the ones that always started the same. A black ship, a screaming mirror, and a voice whispering, you were meant to return. Keezy had always known K-Rob carried something heavy in his silence. But even she didn't know this. Back when he was 12, he spent a summer with his great aunt in Charleston. Her house was old. Her basement was older. And behind the furnace was a wooden chest full of naval relics. One item stood out, a rusted ship bell, tied with twine, etched with one word, Mazi. When he rang it, he heard screams. When he stopped, his shadow lingered a second longer than him. He never told anyone. Now, years later, he stood face to face with that truth. The Griever's masked captain lifted his hand again, not to attack, to salute, as if recognizing a brother or a traitor. Keezy's voice pulsed through the air. He was meant to be the anchor before I ever set foot on this ship. In the ballroom, Frankie turned to Faye. What does that mean? The Mazi doesn't just trap ghosts. It chooses hosts. It always has. Why K-Rob? Elias answered, because he's not from your time. Suddenly, memories poured into K, Rob's skull like boiling water. Another life, another name, Kellen Robichaux, a sailor cursed by the original Griever. He survived the wreck, but the sea never let go. It followed his bloodline, generation to generation, until it landed in him. Back on the bridge, the Griever's fog hissed and pulled back slightly. The masked captain lowered his hand, then reached into his chest and pulled out a burning compass. It spun wildly until it pointed at K-Rob. The captain bowed once and vanished. The Griever began to pull away. The bridge retracted. The fog retreated, but something remained. On the deck where the captain stood, a mirror shard. Keezy emerged from the lower hall, her spirit stable again, her body half human, half light. She looked at K-Rob. He didn't come to kill us. K-Rob nodded. He came to test me. Frankie stepped forward. So what now? K-Rob picked up the compass. It was cold now, but it still spun. Now we find out why I've been dreaming of this ship since I was 12. Chapter 26. The depth where names drown. The compass wouldn't stop spinning, even after the Griever was gone, even after the fog cleared, even after the crew tried to rest. K-Rob sat alone in the ship's observatory, holding it like it was the last piece of a puzzle carved in bone. Keezy floated beside him, her form flickering between light and body. You were chosen before me, she said softly. I didn't ask for that. Neither did I. He looked down at the compass again. Then why are we still here? She didn't answer, because they both knew the truth. The compass wasn't pointing toward danger anymore. It was pointing home. In the crew kitchen, Frankie laid out an old, water-warped map of the Atlantic. He circled coordinates pulled from the compass needle's movements. Right here, he told the others, somewhere between Bermuda and Memory. That's where the Mazi was first found and where she sank the first time. Mulan leaned over the map. You're saying this ship's already died? Twice, Frankie said. Maybe more. We've just been living in its echo. Santana dragged a metal stool closer. So what's down there? Frankie looked up. Whatever the sea didn't let surface. Kilo barked sharply at the nearest vent. Everyone froze. A voice spilled out, not Keezy's this time, but someone older, colder, male. Kellen. K-Rob stiffened in the hallway. It's time. Flashback. 12-year-old Kellen Robichaux standing on a beach in South Carolina, holding a cracked compass, hearing whispers from the tide, his great-aunt's voice behind him. That bell in the basement belonged to a warship. It rang for sailors and called ghosts instead. He remembered thinking the sea was beautiful, until it screamed. Back in the present, K-Rob turned the compass toward the ocean. It stopped spinning, pointed straight down. It's under us. Keezy's voice came through every speaker, intercom, and pipe on the ship. Then we dive. They suited up in patched wetsuits from the emergency cargo. Frankie jury-rigged a sonar pulse using old casino surveillance equipment. Santana loaded flare harpoons. The winner, still shaken, offered a warning. Every time we go deeper, something follows us back. Melissa handed her a rope of black salt. Then tie this to the past. K-Rob dove first. Keezy moved with him, her form a shimmer across his oxygen tank. The deeper they went, the less real the surface felt. And then, they saw it, a second Mozzie, sunken, cracked, chained to the ocean floor, and nailed to its bow, a rusted anchor made of human bone. Inside its eye hole was K, Rob's name, not painted, grown. Keezy spoke, voice watery and distant. This was your life before me. He floated toward the anchor, reached out, and it pulled him in. Images, flashes, screams. He saw himself in the past, a sailor, a rebel, a survivor, a traitor. He led the revolt that caused the first ship's curse. He wasn't the anchor, he was the spark. Back aboard the Mozzie, alarms blared, the sonar screamed. Something else was rising from the deep, something big. Keezy turned to K-Rob under the waves. We didn't just find your past, we woke it. Chapter 27, Leviathan's Wake. At first, it was just a ripple. Then it became a pulse, a slow, building vibration from beneath the sand, rising up through the bones of the sunken Mozzie. K-Rob hovered weightless, his breath steady, his eyes locked on the shifting dark below him. Keezy's spirit shimmered beside him, whispering like a sonar ping. Something's moving. The chains anchoring the skeletal wreck began to tighten and snap, one by one. Not from rust, from pressure, from something breaking out. Above, on the real Mozzie, Santana steadied the harpoon turret, eyes wide. Yo, y'all seeing this? On the sonar screen, Frankie saw a shape that shouldn't exist. No outline, no consistent size, just a void, a blind spot in the water. That's not a whale, he muttered. No, said Melissa from behind him. That's a memory. K-Rob dove deeper. The wrecked Mozzie below him groaned. Wood creaked underwater. Chains snapped. And then, it opened. The hull split like a ribcage. And from inside rose a being. Not a ghost, not a fish, not a god. A memory made flesh. A beast born from betrayal. Its body was armored in rusted hull plating. Its mouth filled with sailor bones. Its eyes burned red. It was shaped like a sea serpent, but carried on its back the shattered hull of the first ship ever cursed. Keezy whispered in awe, "The Leviathan." "No," K-Rob said, "it's my sin." Flashback, 1798. Kellen Robichaux aboard the Griever's sister ship. The captain planned to bind a soul to the hull using forbidden rites. Kellen rebelled, tried to stop it, failed. And in trying to stop the curse, he created it. His blood, mixed with sea salt and iron, became the final offering. Now, centuries later, that creation had woken, and it wanted him. The Leviathan turned toward K-Rob. Even underwater, he heard its voice. Blood, anchor, reckoning. Keezy lit up beside him. "You're not his anymore." "No," K-Rob whispered, "but I owe him." He swam toward the beast. Above, Frankie grabbed the emergency cable reel. "Pull them up, now." The ship jerked, then lurched. The Leviathan's mass shifted the tide. Waves slammed the Mozzie. Lightning cracked. Clouds formed from nothing. Mulan braced herself in the ballroom, watching mirrors shatter one by one. Dewinna held onto a chain as her reflection smiled back at her. "Not yet," it said. Back below, K-Rob floated in front of the beast. He pulled out the compass. It spun wildly, then stopped, pointed. At the beast's heart, a cage of bone and chain. Inside, a child. K, Rob's reflection as a boy. Terrified. Alone. Chained. Keezy gasped. "You didn't just create the curse. You trapped yourself." K, Rob's body began to glow. Keezy reached out. "Don't do this." "I'm not dying," he said. "I'm taking it back." He pressed the compass to the bone cage. A scream erupted, not from the beast, but from within K-Rob. And then, light. Everything turned white. The Leviathan convulsed. Chains shattered. The child vanished. The beast's heart stopped. K-Rob awoke on the dive deck, soaked, choking on seawater. Keezy hovered above him, tears in her eyes. He sat up slowly. "It's done?" Keezy shook her head. "Not yet, but now, it's awake." "What is?" Keezy looked to the horizon. "The Griever. returning, and behind it, a storm shaped like a spiral gate. Chapter 28, The Spiral Gate. The storm wasn't just a storm, it was a spiral, spinning in reverse, folding the sky inward, dragging the moonlight into its center like a drain. Waves bent toward it instead of away. Clouds funneled down like they were afraid to run. And at the heart of it all, the griever, back from whatever void it had crawled into, trailing silence and a scream no one could hear. The spiral gate was open, and it was hungry. K-Rob stood on the upper deck, soaked, shivering, but alive. The compass hung around his neck like a curse reclaimed. Keezy floated beside him, barely keeping form. "This isn't just a storm," she whispered. "I know. Then why aren't you scared?" K-Rob exhaled. "Because I finally remember what this ship is." Inside the war room, Frankie spread pages from 4 different logs: Mazi, Griever, Leviathan, and one Maureen unmarked book that had been hidden in the bow. The winner held a candle while he read aloud. Spiral gate, temporal drift, soul transfer. The Mazi was a test, an experiment in containment. "Of what?" Melissa asked. Frankie pointed to the page. "Of reality." Flashback. 1849. A group of occult scientists, funded by a forgotten empire, sought to create a vessel that could ferry souls between dimensions. They called it Project Spiral. It failed. The original ship imploded off the coast of Nigeria. A survivor escaped with the schematics, built the Mazi. The spiral gate? It wasn't a portal. It was the trapdoor at the bottom of it all. Kilo growled at a mirror that hadn't cracked yet. Keezy's reflection stepped forward, but something was different. Its eyes were all white, its mouth stitched shut, and behind it, a room with no floor. A falling room. Keezy stared at her own reflection. "That's not me anymore." "It's who you were," Mulan said softly, "and she wants out." On the bridge, Santana stood next to Icy, loading salt shell rounds into a flare rifle. "You ever shoot a god before?" "Nah," Icy said, "but I shot a crooked pastor once. Might be the same thing." Lightning flashed overhead. The storm had formed a perfect spiral now. The griever vanished inside it. And then, the water beneath the Mazi went still. Not calm, still, like a held breath. "It's coming here," Frankie said. "It's crossing over." Keezy turned to K-Rob. "This ship can't run. Wasn't built to. Then we finish it here." K-Rob nodded. "But we don't wait for it." The spiral gate pulsed once, a heartbeat from the deep. Then something stepped through. Not the griever, not a ghost, a man, tall, hooded, eyes glowing. He held a book made of mirror glass. He whispered without moving his mouth, "Welcome back to the crossing." And everyone aboard the Mazi felt it, a shift in gravity, in air, in meaning. The Mazi had sailed into a memory of a memory, a dream turned inside out. Chapter 29, Through the Crossing. The world unraveled like threads soaked in ink, not torn, not shattered, just undone. As the figure with the mirror glass book stepped onto the Mazi's deck, the sky above folded into itself. The moon warped into a spiral. Time slowed until the waves froze in mid-crest. Frankie dropped his flare gun. "Where are we?" The man's voice echoed without sound. "You've entered the crossing." Keezy gripped K-Rob's arm, her body flickering like a weak radio signal. "I've read about this," she whispered. "A realm between life, death, and memory, where every possibility exists at once." K-Rob locked eyes with the man. "You the one behind this?" The man said nothing. Instead, he opened his book. One by one, mirror pages turned, each reflecting a different version of the Mazi. One on fire, one sinking, one overrun by vines, one drifting in space. Frankie backed away, wide-eyed. "This is every timeline?" The man nodded once, then spoke directly into their minds. 10 ghosts, 10 broken timelines, 10 sins never buried. He held up one hand. "You've seen what happens when they escape." A flash behind his palm. The image of Santana eyes, black, body twisted, whispering in a voice that wasn't his. Then Dewena bound in silver thread, screaming through a mirror. Keezy gasped. "That's our future." "Not yet," the man said. "Then who are you?" K-Rob demanded. The man tilted his head. "I am the librarian." Below deck, Mulan ran her fingers along a mirror that hadn't reflected anyone in hours. This one showed herself, but bruised, crying, holding a child. A life she'd never lived. Or maybe had once. Melissa touched another mirror. It shattered, and inside, she saw Santana's face. Dead, bleeding, smiling. "He's already gone," she whispered. "Not yet," Frankie said. "The librarian just showed us possibility, not fate." The librarian closed the book. The sky returned slowly. The water resumed motion. Time stitched itself back together. But one change remained. The spiral gate didn't close. Instead, it hovered above the sea, a massive, swirling mirror reflecting everyone's worst fears. "What do we do now?" Icy asked. K-Rob stepped forward, compass in hand. "We go in." Everyone stared. "You nuts?" Santana barked. "We're already haunted," K-Rob said. "Might as well pick where we fight." Keezy floated closer. "He's right. If we wait here, we die like every other timeline. But if we go in," Frankie grabbed the map, rewrote a line across the Atlantic. "We might break the loop." The librarian stepped aside, hand gesturing toward the spiral. "Choose your weapons. Choose your truths. But hurry. Not all ghosts wait patiently." Chapter 30, The Twisted Fleet. The moment they stepped through the spiral gate, the ocean disappeared. No splash, no tilt, no gravity, just sudden silence, like the universe exhaled and forgot to inhale. They weren't on the Mozzie anymore. Not exactly. K-Rob stood first. The deck beneath him looked like the Mozzie's, but twisted. The planks were black and bone, knotted with rope made of hair. The air smelled like wet wood and burnt mirrors. The others blinked in around him: Frankie, Keezy, Mulan, Icy, Dewinna, Melissa, and Santana. But not all at once. They arrived in versions of themselves. Santana had no reflection. Melissa's hands were made of cracked porcelain. Dewinna kept hearing her children crying from her own pockets. "Is this the inside of the spiral?" Frankie asked, clutching a crowbar wrapped in salt thread. "No," Keezy said, "it's worse." Ahead of them, rising from the mist, 10 ships, all floating around them, identical to the Mozzie, but each ship wrong. One covered in teeth, one built from glass, one stitched together from mirror versions of every crew member. The Twisted Fleet. A low horn echoed. One of the ghost ships moved forward. Keezy grabbed K-Rob's wrist. "Each one of those ships carries one of the cursed souls." 10 ghosts, K-Rob muttered. 10 Mozzies. Only 3 of them have any good left. Suddenly, a voice boomed from above. "Choose." The librarian's voice, distant but clear. "Each ship offers you a memory or a death. You must board them, face what's inside. Survive 3 and the spiral breaks. Fail and it becomes your new sea." Frankie tightened his grip. "We pick 3? "We pick together," Mulan said. Keezy pointed to the nearest ghost chaperone made of twisted casino lights, playing a soft jazz melody that sounded slightly off-key. "That one feels familiar." Santana narrowed his eyes. "That's where I used to work before this trip." Keezy's glow flickered. "Then it knows you." They boarded it. Immediately, the doors slammed shut behind them. The deck melted into carpet. Slot machines blinked like eyes, and a familiar voice whispered through the ceiling, "What's your luckiest lie, Santana?" He turned to the crew. "This one's mine. Y'all back me up." And as the ship locked into motion, spinning through the spiral sea, a mirror cracked in the sky above them, marking the first trial. Chapter 31, House of the Hollow Bet. The door slammed shut behind them. The ship groaned. Lights flickered red, then blue, then something that wasn't a color at all, more like the feeling of regret dressed in neon. They were inside Santana's ghost, and it was a casino, but not like any real one. The walls pulsed like muscle. The blackjack tables bled down the legs. Each slot machine blinked with familiar names on the reels. Keezy, Mulan, Santana, even K-Rob, Frankie whispered. "This ain't just a memory." Keezy nodded. "It's a punishment." Santana stepped forward. He wasn't smiling now. Gone was the cocky flirt from Philly. This version was older, meaner, dressed in his old work uniform before he got fired. Before the hustle, before he broke hearts and bridges, a voice came from the ceiling. "Welcome back, DeAndre Santana Fields. We missed your bad decisions." A blackjack table slid forward on its own. Dealerless, chips already stacked. 5 seats. Santana sat. 4 others joined Keezy, Mulan, Frankie, and K-Rob. The cards flipped themselves. First hand, Santana got 20. The others, bust. A voice whispered in his ear, "You win, they lose." He looked around. Their faces started to shift, becoming hollow, blurry. They weren't dying, they were being erased. "Get up," Santana shouted. "This ain't it." No one moved. A ghost stepped into view, a mirror version of Santana. Hair slicker, smile sharper, eyes empty. "They always bet on you," the ghost said, "and you always fold. You lie for love, you gamble with people, you never play straight." Keezy's voice crackled from behind him. "Santana, it's not a game, it's a confession." Santana stood, pushed the chair back, stared down his reflection. "I ain't proud of who I was, but I ain't letting that version of me win." He reached across the table, grabbed the dealer chip, slammed it on the ground. The entire ship jerked, mirrors cracked. The ghost flinched. "I don't fold for ghosts." The voice from above whispered again, "Your lie has been paid in full." Santana turned back. Keezy, Mulan, Frankie, and K-Rob returned to normal. The ship began to disintegrate, cards flying like birds, walls collapsing into mist. Frankie grabbed Santana's arm as the exit door opened. One down. K-Rob looked ahead. The next ghost ship hovered. It had no name, no lights, just silence. "That one's mine," K-Rob said quietly. Chapter 32. Anchor of the Forgotten Name. The second ship wasn't made of wood or metal. It was carved from names, thousands of them, etched into the walls, scrawled in forgotten tongues across the sails, burned into the anchor chained to the hull. And somewhere in that list, K, Rob's real name, was waiting. They boarded in silence. No waves, no wind, only a deep hum that seemed to vibrate through their bones. The moment K-Rob stepped on deck, the air changed. Colder, heavier, as if the ship itself recognized him. Keezy reached for him, but he stepped ahead alone. "I need to do this myself." The corridor inside led to a small cabin, a captain's quarters untouched by time. Dust floated like ghosts. A cracked mirror hung above a rotted desk, and in the center of the room, a child sat on the floor, curled up, crying. K-Rob froze. "That's you," Melissa whispered. "No," K-Rob muttered. "That's him." The child looked up, eyes hollow, voice shaking. "Why'd you leave me?" Flashback, a young Kellen Robichaux trapped below deck in a fire, screaming for help. No one came. Not the captain, not the crew, not even his father. Only the sea answered, with whispers and a deal. Back in the present, the child pointed behind him. A black door stood there now, where the wall had been. It pulsed like a heart. Above it, the word traitor was carved again and again and again. K-Rob walked past the child and gripped the handle. "You gonna open it?" Frankie asked. "No," K-Rob said. "I'm gonna burn it." He threw the compass at the door. It shattered on impact, unleashing light. The room ignited, not with flame, but with truth. Every name on the walls glowed, and one by one, they began to lift, fading into the air like ashes from a fire. The boy vanished, smiling. "You remembered me." Keezy grabbed K-Rob as the cabin collapsed. "You did it. You broke your loop." "No," he said, "I closed it." As they escaped, the second ghost ship crumbled into dust. Only one remained. It drifted ahead, covered in fog and feathers, and from its deck, a voice sang softly, "A lullaby." Frankie turned, startled. That's Kilo's voice. The final ship was calling, and Frankie's trial had just begun. Chapter 33. The Whispering Dog Star. No. The last ghost ship drifted in silence, wrapped in fog so thick it moved like smoke. It didn't creak or sway. It didn't shimmer like a memory. It waited. Frankie stood at the edge of the Mozzie, Kilo at his side. The dog whined once, then barked, a sound like thunder swallowed in velvet. "This one's mine," Frankie whispered. "How do you know?" Melissa asked. He pointed to the ship's bow, etched into the wood, glowing faintly. "Franklin J. Stone, one of 3. No. As they boarded, the fog closed behind them. No door, no exit, only stars. The deck below their feet wasn't wood. It was glass, showing a sky full of constellations, but they moved in reverse, like the ship was sailing backward through time. No. Kilo stepped ahead, tail high. He stopped beside a figure curled on the deck. A man, thin, pale, blindfolded, chains wrapped around his chest. Frankie stopped cold. That's my brother. The man opened his mouth, but Kilo growled and barked once. Suddenly, the ship shattered. Was no. They stood in a memory now. An alley in New Orleans, rain falling like it was mad at the world. Young Frankie cradled a shaking pit bull in his arms, Kilo. Behind him, two men argued, his brother Marcus, and the man who sold the curse that bound Kilo to Frankie's soul. Was no. Back on the ghost ship, Frankie trembled. I didn't save him. You saved Kilo, Kesey said. But Marcusha took the deal. Died for it. Kilo barked again, but it came out as words. Not your fault. Frankie looked down at the dog, eyes glowing silver, voice of the good ghost he'd been carrying all along. Was no. Kilo transformed. Not fully human, but not just dog. A guardian. A tether between dimensions. You've been sensing the ghosts because you're part of the chain, Kilo said. Your brother didn't die. He became one of the 10. The chained man on the deck moaned. The last ghost. Frankie knelt beside him. I let you go once. I'm not doing it again. He cut the chains. The ghost body shattered and reformed into a light that wrapped around Frankie's hand. A tattoo of a star bloomed across his wrist. Kilo licked his face once. Now you can lead them. Was no. The ship began to break apart, but it didn't vanish. It rose into the air. A beacon. The third ghost redeemed. Was no. The fleet of twisted Modzies crumbled behind them. The spiral sea began to close. The librarian's voice echoed one last time. 3 redeemed. 7 remain. But now, you have the map. And in K. Rob's hand, the compass spun once, then pointed forward. Chapter 34. The reunion at Deck 0. The spiral snapped shut like a wound that had finally clotted. And the Mozzie shifted, not forward, not backward. Inward, all decks trembled. Mirrors cracked but didn't fall. A low chime echoed from every hallway. Deck 0, the hidden floor no one had ever seen. Not on the blueprints, not in the schematics, not even in the oldest sailor's memory. It was beneath the first deck and above every death that had ever happened on the ship. K-Rob held the compass. It pulsed with a steady red glow now. No spinning, no confusion. It pointed straight through the floor. It's calling us down, he said. Kesey nodded. Deck 0. Frankie looked at the elevator panel, where a faded button had just appeared. He pressed it. The doors opened with a whisper, and the group descended. The moment the elevator stopped, they knew it wasn't just a level. It was a holding space. The air was heavy, too quiet. Like the world was listening, they stepped out onto black marble. The walls were still, but they breathed. Then came the voices, one by one, soft, shaken. Why didn't you wait for me? Melissa froze. It was Nick's voice echoing from the shadows. He stepped into view, pale, whole, but not alive. His eyes glowed faintly blue. I tried to come back, but I couldn't find the door. Then Link Jr. appeared, Thingy, smiling, sad, floating just above the ground like his shoes forgot how to touch it. Dad thinks I'm still here. Tell him he was right. Kesey reached out, but Link Jr. stepped back. Number, you're alive, I'm in between. Dewena stepped from the dark next. Her dress was burned, her eyes hollow, but she still had that dangerous smile. So this is what it takes for Santana to look for me? Santana opened his mouth, but she vanished. Then Melissa's cousin, Melissa. But she wasn't alone. Behind her, a figure cloaked in black velvet, face stitched, no voice, holding a candle with a flame that whispered. Kesey gasped. That's the one who guards the unforgiven. The ghost stepped forward. Together. We're not here to haunt, Nick said. We're here to warn. Leg Amazing knows what you've done. He's rebuilding the ritual. K. Rob's eyes narrowed. To trap the spiral gate again? No, Link Jr. said. To unleash it. The air shifted. The walls peeled open. And at the end of the hall, a door, marked with every name of the dead. Santana stepped forward. If we open that, Kesey answered, then the real nightmare starts. The spiral gate is closed, but the dead are not done speaking. 3 ghosts redeemed, 7 remain. And now, the crew faces the truths buried deepest, in themselves, in the ship, and in what waits on Deck 0. K-Rob has the compass, Kesey has the light, Frankie has the map, and the others? They carry loss, but also fire. The ghosts are watching. Leg Amazing is moving. And the next time the Mozzie shifts, it won't be to trap the living. It'll be to finish what the sea started. Stay locked. Part 3 is coming. Whispers Between Worlds continues.